How do you know somebody comes from a low-income background? In Latin America, but I think this is the case for many other countries around the world, you ask a simple question. What school did you go to? Many of you, I'm sure, recognize this, right? That means that a school is not precisely a great equalizer. Unfortunately, rather the opposite. Now, I want you to think about this. What is the extra that you get in those high-income schools? High-quality instruction of basic skills, reading and writing, math and science? Fair enough. But what more? You get extracurricular activities that provide you with imperishable skills. Those top transversal skills that help you anywhere you go. Work, friends, neighbors, family, and life in general. And third, the other thing you get is a network of relationships that will also accompany you in your entire life. A 21st century education cannot stay at reading, writing, math, and science. Most poor people get some of that, but don't get the traditionally called soft skills and the network in school, and we all know they are critical for success in life. They predict better school results, social-emotional development, higher wages, career advancement, physical and mental health, individual and collective well-being. There is something we cannot forget. What girls and boys learn in school is the currency we are giving them to use in life, particularly when you don't have any other assets. They exchange those skills in the labor market to get a quality job, but also they use them in their communities and families. This capital, this human capital, is what will make the difference between a prosperous life and a life full of hardship. Why are those skills more critical than ever now? Because we live in a world in transformation that is very different from the world other generations grew up in. Because people need to deal with things we didn't have to worry about before. Automation, living with robots, aging, climate change, diversity, migration, and now also a pandemic, COVID-19. Because we might not realize it, but all the digital transformation we are living in is not really about technology. It's about people and talent. So now, let's look at the future. How should Education 2030 be? First, it should respond to the needs of what I call the kids of the generation COVID. Until March, if you run a Google search, you will find that those kids that are today between approximately 7 and 22 years old were called Generation Z or post-millennials. Well, they are not anymore. They have been hit by the worst crisis in the last century and found themselves trapped by the pandemic, either starting, in the middle, or finishing their studies. Let's just get some numbers. In LAC, about 150 million students 5 to 18 years old had to stay at home. Pre-COVID, only about 60% of low-income students attended secondary education. In addition to those numbers, our analysis estimates that about 1 million students will drop out due to the pandemic. Unemployment in the region has also increased by more than 12% due to COVID and is hitting the youth harder. Of the envelope calculations estimate around 10 trillion loss of lifetime earnings for future generations. Second, education should be a leveler. In 2030, social origin shouldn't define anybody's destiny, or at least the school should be the equalizer that is not today. Investment in human capital through school is the main alternative for low-income children and youth to climb up the social ladder, to have a better life than their parents. Traditionally, they have been offered segmented social services. Middle and high-income children do not study in the same centers as low-income children. They don't have the same teachers and they don't see the same doctors when they are sick. With such unequal starting points, COVID has come to worsen an already existing inequality trap. I want you now for a moment to look at this. This is Angelica Benston, a pole vault athlete. What's interesting here is how she moves from here on the floor after her pole breaks. This is her last attempt. She asks for encouragement to the public. She gets the pole of a running mate. She tries again and she makes it. I want you all to look at this and to think of this because this is the leap, very similar to the bounce that thousands of poor kids need to do to make it from here, like Osvaldo living in extremely vulnerable neighborhoods with violence and crime, low resources and low educated parents, to here, where we see him participating in the Education Commission of Paraguay. And third, Education 2030 should be about connections because they need to survive in an interconnected world. We need to connect people with the right skills that are going to be useful for them as persons, as professionals, as citizens. Education has to provide students with concrete tools, those that they need to thrive in life. Do not depreciate over time. On the contrary, they increase their value over time and allow us to gain other skills. Second, connecting education with economic opportunities. That means breaking the skills mismatch that exists between what companies need and what school produces. Connecting people with employment opportunities. Education opportunities are only tangible if they translate into employment and jobs. The real test for how well a student did is not the final score she gets on test, but how useful is what she learned to get a quality job, start a successful business, or have a prosperous life. And three, connecting actors within the ecosystem to make sure that they all work together to increase the quality of education, make it more relevant to the market. Education is not anymore the responsibility of the state. It is a shared responsibility because we all need to contribute to a system in which learning will not happen anymore from 0 to 18 or 25. It will be a lifelong journey. Now, what are these imperishable skills that we all need to navigate an uncertain world? These are the skills. And let me just briefly highlight a few of them. Today, I'm not going to talk about digital skills as it is quite obvious that no one can survive without them. Let's start by learnability. If technology is changing at an incredibly rapid speed, the world we live in, including our jobs and occupation, we need to keep on learning. How to use a new app, a new coding language. If many of the jobs that exist today will disappear in the coming years, either we learn to do other things and we reinvent ourselves, or we will end up unemployed and replaced by a robot. Learning to learn allows people to keep getting into new things, to be aware of what you need to manage your own process and needs, and identify opportunities and overcome obstacles, because we all learn, gain knowledge and skills in very different ways. It helps you build on prior knowledge and experiences to gain new skills faster and in a more efficient way, both at home and at work. Let's now move into critical thinking. Think of the massive amounts of information we are exposed to. How do we distinguish what's relevant and what's important from what is not? How do we recognize truth from fake? How can we assess if a piece of information is grounded in solid scientific research or somebody just made it up? Critical thinking enables people to have an informed and ethical engagement with information, with digital technologies, and with media content. But hey, young people are not only consumers of content, they also produce content. So critical thinking is also key to support students and everybody to contribute with verified, respectful, and ethical content. Creativity. Creativity is the ability, to produce work that is at the same time original and useful. At the individual level, creativity helps, for example, solving problems in your daily life or at work. But at the level of society, creativity is critical for innovation and for scientific findings. Think now for a moment of all these scientists that are, as we speak, working to find a vaccine for COVID-19. Not only creativity is critical for human development and survival, but a recent study surprisingly found that the creative skills are similar in arts and sciences. So basically, the capacity to solve a problem by a musician when she composes a symphony is very similar to the ability that applies an engineer to deal with a construction challenge. It requires being open to new ideas, employing divergent thinking, and maintaining a sense of flexibility. These attitudes, dispositions, skills, and knowledge are all transferable from one situation to another. And the last one, resilience and grit. We already said that not all of us are born at the same starting points and with the same opportunities. If we want 2030 to look different than today, we will need to foster in our youth resilience, perseverance, and passion. That's the only way we can make sure that those vulnerable kids make the leap they need to change their destiny. Let me share with you the story of Diana Trujillo. She is an aerospace engineer and part of a NASA team that just launched a rover to Mars. That in itself is quite remarkable, but that is not the only reason I want to talk about her today. She is Colombian of origin and she arrived as an immigrant at the age of 17 to the US with only $300 in her pocket. She started with English lessons and had to take on several jobs, including housekeeper, to support her own studies. She continued her studies all the way through university, started engineering, and was encouraged to apply for the NASA Academy. She became the first immigrant Hispanic woman on the program. We need today many more like Diana to reach for the stars. And we need to teach them how to develop and strengthen those skills that will take them there, even in times of crisis. So now, where are we today? When you decide to go somewhere, you first need to know where you are. That's your starting point. So where are we? Where is our education in 2020? Well, here the bad news is that unfortunately, education 2020 is not that different from education in the 1900s. And where the system really falls apart is particularly in the connection between education and employment and economic opportunities. Our education systems are preparing our kids and youth for yesterday's and today's jobs. But hey, not for tomorrow's jobs. Look, for example, here in the last World Economic Forum report, when they look at the barriers to the adoption of new technologies, what comes first is the skills gap in the local labor market. And that goes for other sectors as well. Automation is opening up an incredible number of possibilities we cannot imagine yet. Every day we discover something different. Some estimates tell us that more than 50% of the occupations of the future are unknown today. We need to prepare students to deal with uncertainty, because the reality is that we don't know a lot of things. Many of the jobs that we have today, could be up to 50% or more depending on the country, are specialized and repetitive, which basically means that they could be easily done and replaced by machines. The labor market is becoming increasingly polarized. Another important trend. On the one hand, we have the low-pay occupations that require a combination between manual labor and the ability to work with people. Examples: professionals taking care of children and the elderly, or people with disabilities, the bartender, the hairdresser. And in the other extreme, those high-pay occupations that require higher-order cognitive functions, critical thinking, leadership, and highly specialized technical skills. And oops, the jobs that were right in the middle before are in the process of disappearing and being taken up by machines. See, for example, here that the job roles that are in decreasing demand are precisely those like data entry clerks, administrative assistants, secretaries, accountants, etc. Now, when we look at our education system, we see that it's creating second-class robots instead of concentrating on creating first-class humans, because they teach us what computers are best at: specialized and repetitive predictive work, accumulation of information and data, and compliance with instructions. Whereas we as humans are much better at and cannot be replaced by a machine when we interconnect ideas and things that have not been linked before. When we are faced with situations that we could not predict, when we have to use and understand our emotions to solve a problem, or when there is a need for new ideas. So now the question is, why would anybody spend 12 years or more in an education program that does not give you the tools you need to work and to have a good life? And yes, the answer is indeed, they are not. Many people are either dropping out or abandoning any learning path, or looking up for other alternatives, certifications, micro-credentials, nano-degrees, digital badges, or boot camps in different topics from programming to data analytics. And there is a growing market responding to those very specific needs of both the companies on the one hand and the young people in search of economic opportunities. This, together with those teachers that, with their individual initiatives, are trying really hard to bring to their students a new education, could be the game changers. So, is everything or everywhere the same? No, it's not. At the system level, some countries are adapting and performing well, but also we are seeing, as I was saying, a lot of individual private sector NGO initiatives that are trying to respond to this new reality in a different and sometimes very effective way. There is a revolution happening in education, but a lot of the transformation is happening outside the traditional classroom, the traditional education sector. Let me just go very quickly through some of these examples to give you a flavor of the magnitude and the strength of this emerging trend in education and training. Companies like Google, Infosys, IBM, AT&T, or Amazon are creating their own cutting-edge in-house universities and programs to prepare new people for the jobs they need, and also upskill and reskill the workers they already have. Universities like Minerva, another example, offer a curriculum rich in 21st century skills, those that you can transfer from occupation to occupation, with a combination of online education, academic excellence, and lower costs for students. Holberton offers a mix between highly specialized technical skills, software engineering, and soft skills, and students don't pay until they get a job. Other very promising edtech companies are, for example, Global Alumni, which is helping top universities around the world to transform their programs and the students' learning experience. And then, in the world of actually translating skills into something companies can actually see, touch, and buy, there are a lot of new startups and organizations offering digital assessments and certification, including badges and other forms of accreditation. Here we have Degreed, Credly, NACAP, Innovate plus Educate, or Diwala. Also at the IDB, we are supporting the region with solutions for youth, like the major policy reform Colombia is implemented. And we are also offering a regional platform to help youth and individuals along their professional careers to assess, certify, and showcase their skills, and at the same time, build a regional network of peers and mentors. The name of the platform is CLICK, because education needs to be about making those connections: skills, employment, and networks. We have also created a large network of innovators in the region through what we have called the 21st Century Skills Coalition. And in collaboration with 100 and JP Morgan, we are expanding this network to identify the solutions that most effectively will help build skills for life in the region. Just as Diana Trujillo, our youth should be shooting for the stars, and we have the responsibility to give them the tools to shoot for the stars, because it is their future and the prosperity of our countries that is at stake, and nobody can afford a lost generation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks to CARIS for inviting me to the 2022 CARIS Global Network Week. My name is Jeffrey. I'm the Senior Education Specialist with ADB. Today, I will take the opportunity to share the ADB strategy for the future of education, especially in digital education. If you go to the presentation outline. So my presentation is broken into 3 sections. First, I will talk about the global catalyst that are driving change in the education sector. Next, I will highlight the digital education roadmap and the transformation of the sector. And last, I will share ADB's support for the education sector to help reimagine the education sector in our developing member countries. First, the global catalyst. As we know, there's really an urgency to respond to the learning and learning losses and the need to turn the COVID-19 crisis into an opportunity. This need to take a transformative approach to education reform. These reforms are driven largely by global catalysts, such as climate change, digitization, and the pandemic that affects all levels of education, including school education, higher education, and technical and vocational education and training, which is TVET. So now, as we see the schools have been reopening, the main questions are, how will countries recover the learning losses, and how to ensure that the dropouts get back to school? And how to ensure that teachers are ready to support the learning recovery in the best possible ways. And especially, I think there's a really urgency to help the students who weren't able to learn literacy and numeracy skills during school closures, and those will face compounded learning and learning and learning losses when they grow up. Another mega trend is the climate change that is disrupting most industries and how we respond to sustainability. Climate change related disasters are already affecting 50% of the population in East Asia and the Pacific annually. Again, the most vulnerable groups are in the worst situation. Unfortunately, the education system, the readiness to address climate change is currently still very low. According to UNICEF, countries lack knowledge on how to integrate education to be more active in fighting climate change. Thus, education has been grossly undertapped in prepare future leaders and the green workforce, as well as generating massive awareness and mindset change in facilitating green and just transition. Last but not least, as we know, the digitization impacts all sectors and the future of jobs significantly. The World Economic Forum estimates that by 2045, 85 million jobs will be displaced due to automation and digitization, while 97 million new jobs will emerge. At the same time, digitization offers tremendous opportunities to improve the quality, scale, and affordability of education delivery. And that's where we're going to get to the next, is how do we capitalize the acceleration of education technology to digitize education delivery. Here we are breaking again into a three-step process. First, on why using education technology and looking at the key evidences where EdTech can improve learning efficacy. Second, rationalize the EdTech taxonomy, but focusing on the key solutions that are relevant for systematic and sustainable transformations. Last is really focus on how to assess the country's readiness, the gaps, and how to plan, prioritize, and implement the digital transformations. What we done in EDB is we simplified the landscape of the EdTech solutions into the following three categories. The first is teaching and learning. The second is administration and governance. The third is for employability. Focus on the teaching and learning. I think within the teaching and learning category, we further categorize into learning content solutions, learning activities solutions, and learning assessment solutions. These teaching and learning solutions directly contribute to the following benefits, starting from interactive learning everywhere, anywhere, anytime, with dynamic visualization, creative production, and collaboration. At the same time, with the ability to automate guiding feedbacks in real time and provide learning analytics to teachers to enable adaptivity. So how do we start off the journey on to really use EdTech for successful implementation? So what we want to start off is look at the digitization of the education system, and we really gained valuable knowledge on what are the most significant factors affecting the digital transformation. What we have done is we derived this framework called the Digital Education Readiness Framework, and we collected data from 10 developing member countries, analyzed under an EDB study. We working together with Economic Impact Group to develop the Digital Education Readiness Framework. This framework was based on evaluating across 5 pillars with a total of 55 indicators that are critical in the digital education transformation agenda. The digital readiness span the countries that we, across the 10 countries, it really includes the infrastructure pillar, the policy government pillar, the school teachers pillar, students parents pillar, and the EdTech providers pillar. So altogether 5 pillars, 19 sub-pillars, and the 55 indicators. So the data, as highlighted during the pandemic, which is very, I think, consistent. There's a significant gap in the infrastructure pillar across pretty much all DMCs, or developing member countries, followed by a lack of coherent government policy, as well as the providers pillar. For instance, in this chart shows very low digital infrastructure in Bangladesh, and a very limited provider landscape in Fiji and Pakistan, and very weak policy and capacity in Mongolia. So when we say that, the situation of DMCs is we're using the 19th century classrooms with the 20th century teachers, but really teaching 21st century students. And our schools are really becoming the barrier for digital age learning for our 21st century children. And again, this radar chart demonstrates the difference between the gaps in digital education readiness of Bangladesh and Mongolia. Bangladesh exhibits relatively weak infrastructure, where Mongolia features a quite weak governance capacity. So identifying these gaps is important to prioritize decisions on the investment for the next phase. The most optimal development strategy is actually balanced and systematic development across all pillars, across all the 5 pillars, to advance across stages. Heavy investment in one pillar in an effort to leapfrog the stage across one pillar will likely cause very siloed and imbalanced development, resulting in waste of development and waste of money. For example, without the advancement of other pillars, heavy investment, for example, in the infrastructure pillar to have the fastest internet and most expensive devices won't get you the systematic learning outcome improvements across the students and the teachers across all pillars. This is the 4th stage of the digital learning that we are working towards to upgrade our developing member countries. Our countries are mostly in the initial to enable stage, and what we're really working towards really develop to the next stage to be more enabled, e-confident, and immature through a holistic roadmap planning and prioritization process. So we're talking about 3S is systematic. If you look at systematic through the vertical pillars across the 5 pillars, that's really meaning a holistic and systematic approach. The second is staged approach, is the horizontal across the 4 stages. And the systematic and staged approach development will really allow the sustainable digital transformation roadmap for any given country. And last but not least, we'll cover ADB's support as how we're going to support the education transformation through investment in our developing member countries. The ADB education sector strategy is again driven by 3 key pillars. The first one is expand operational support and presence for our developing member countries. Second is to provide human capital and socio-economic development through the whole of government and life cycle approach. Last but not least is to promote innovations across developing Asia and transform the education sector. If you look at the current ongoing ADB projects, it's totaling about 5.3 billion, and it's distributed across 5 operational regions and across different education subsectors. Among all the subsectors, TVET comes top about 30%, and secondary education about 26%, followed by tertiary education and primary education. If we look at among all the regions, the investment for South Asia Department takes more than 46% of the portfolio, with big countries like India and Bangladesh driving the investment and the support. So if you look to the future pipeline, in the next 3 years, we'll be contributing another 4.8 billion US dollars on top of the again the lending really TVET and the secondary school education projects is leading, And if you look at the tertiary education, it's starting to taking a big percentage of our investment portfolio as more countries are looking at higher education or tertiary education to be the economic driver and the innovation for future jobs growth. And again, the South Asia department is leading the investment, followed by Southeast Asia and Central Asia is also expanding. Lastly, we'll cover one example project, the Southeast Asia EdTech pilot project in 4 countries, includes Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. This includes the digital readiness assessment, a planned EdTech pilot interventions in each country, and the evaluation of pilot interventions to support the scale up of the local capacity. So the 4 countries, Cambodia, we're targeting the learning with digital resources and offline access. Indonesia focus on support and development of existing digital initiatives for teachers, continuous professional development. And for Philippines, it's working with the training agency responsible for TESDA, for hybrid and offline instances of digital enabled skills training. Vietnam, we're going to be focused on development of communicative approach and enhancements to speaking and listening skills through student access to language learning app through the mobile devices. You see across the board, the 4 countries very much focus on the initial to developing stage of the development, and which is really prevalent in our developing country context. And that's all I wanted to cover in today's presentation, and hopefully working together with the partners like Icarus, we can continue to enhance our capacity and our support to developing member countries in their digital transformation agenda. Thank you. I'll stop here. Have a great day.
My name is Bob Hawkins. I'm the global lead here at the World Bank for Technology and Innovation in Education. I'm very happy to be here with you virtually, although I missed the days when we were together face-to-face when Icarus hosted so many of our joint EdTech and education policymaker workshops. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can share a little bit about the theme of this virtual meeting, Facing the Future of Education, a Better Tomorrow for All. What I'm going to talk about here today is a bit of the work that we have been doing on blockchain and education, which is a relevant theme for the metaverse, in the sense that I think metaverse is sometimes conflated between a 2D interface such as Minecraft or Fortnite to the 3D virtual reality worlds, to some of the augmented reality, and some of the emerging spaces with regard to Web3 and the opportunities for ownership and transferability of digital assets on the blockchain. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of this work, of the work we've been doing around blockchain, why we think it's exciting for the future, and why we think it's relevant for education. So first of all, let me talk about the problems that we're facing here at the World Bank. The first is, in education, these problems are chronic and repetitive. A huge challenge around unmotivated youth and the relevance of education in terms of skills. So on motivation, 46% of young people, for instance, in Latin America, who start higher education graduate by the time they're almost 30. Lack of relevant skills. Recent surveys show that the private sector demands skills such as critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and yet our institutions are rarely developing these skills. unrealized youth potential, finding ways in which to tap into what youth are passionate about, such as thinking about using their education to affect changes in behavior with regard to climate change. Transparency. Many studies have shown that only 13% of resources actually reach the school and the classroom level. And then finally, high monitoring and evaluation costs. It's interesting that almost 3/4 of our education projects involve what's called results-based financing. So we finance results as opposed to inputs. But for every dollar that we spend on these, we spend another 50 cents, or about 33% on the verification. So it's some of these issues that compelled us to kind of look at new solutions and new technologies and how we might be able to address some of these challenges we see across our portfolio. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about an action research project that we've run for 12 years now called Evoke, which is a project which is using technology to engage students where they're spending their time in storytelling, in graphic novels, in social networks, in game environments. And it's a project-based learning initiative that helps young people think about global grand challenges, develop solutions to those challenges, and in the process, develop these 21st century skills. Excuse me, I've developed a bit of a cold. But the skills are creativity, being a creative visionary, collaboration, empathy, and problem solving. And you can see here the sub skills as well that are developed through this engagement. And we've discovered through various iterations that actually development of these 21st century skills is much more effective when you're doing it in a project-based learning environment, so that you're thinking about empathy not just in the abstract, but in going out in your community and kind of understanding what are their challenges around climate change or around literacy, that you're developing creativity, again, not in isolation, but thinking about how to resolve problems and brainstorming with others. So this is a little bit of background on this project that we've iterated a number of times. First of all, looking at behavior change through game mechanics. Second, looking at the development of relevant 21st century skills. And in the latest iteration, again, looking at how frontier technologies such as blockchain can address some of the challenges that I highlighted up front. Now, again, what was the solution that we put together? We looked at the use of blockchain to facilitate transparent and trackable incentives to students to develop relevant skills to solve environmental challenges, one of the global grand challenges that we're interested in. Again, this is an open source global public goods solution that we developed that addresses these issues of transparency of disbursement, so that you can see as you put a dollar or a peso in the case of Colombia, where we piloted this project, into a cohort of students, you can see as it reaches all the way down to the classroom level and is used by students in a marketplace. In the project that I'm going to share with you, students received tokens that had real world value in exchange for doing work on an online platform. And as they received those tokens, they could exchange them in the marketplace. The second objective was improving efficiency through results-based financing. Again, instead of paying that additional 50 cents on every dollar to verify whether indeed students achieved results, we built the results into what are called smart contracts on the blockchain, which are basically if-then statements. So for instance, if a student completed an activity in the online platform, he or she would receive tokens. If then that activity and that evidence was of quality and received, in the case of Colombia, a grade of 80% or higher, then they would receive additional tokens. So very simple results. Did they do the work, and did they do it with quality? And then finally, we see this as an opportunity to, by providing transparency, both in flow of funds and transparency in terms of results, to be able to crowd in additional investment into the education sector. Now, again, just a brief overview of what is the blockchain and why we think it's an interesting technology to address some of these challenges. So the first one is trust. We hear a lot about trustless data. So again, this data set that is shared across a network of computers that share the exact same set of data in terms of exchange of value. So if I provide X number of tokens to my colleague Alice, that transfer of value is replicated across these thousands of computers that are on the blockchain. So again, this sense that there is not an ability to change that data at a centralized level, and because it's distributed, it's more trustworthy. Obviously, the data that goes in needs to be trustworthy in the first place, but once it's shared across the network, it's impossible to change. Again, the uniqueness of the blockchain, that it's provided for the first time the ability to create scarcity in digital assets, whether it's money, certificate, or digital content, which again presents then the opportunities for ownership of digital assets and then exchange of value in those digital assets. And the last characteristic of the blockchain that is of interest is the programmability of these digital assets. So again, just as we illustrated in the smart contract, being able to program exactly how a digital asset will be exchanged if a student completes work, if a student completes work with quality, and be able to then transfer value based on that work that's completed is of interest to us. Now, this is just an example of kind of how the pilot was run. We ran this in Colombia right before COVID in 2019, 2020. And the idea was that we converted fiat money, dollars, and in this case pesos, into a token on the blockchain. This was a stable coin, so there wasn't fluctuation in terms of value. That these resources were then put into a donor account, so that the donor, whether it's the World Bank, the government of Colombia, in this case it was the government of Spain who supported this project, were then able to allocate those resources to a cohort of various student groups. They could then allocate it to the student cohort. The students would do the work, earn the token. Teachers would then validate the work, could also earn tokens, and then both could go to the marketplace and exchange these tokens for real world value. In the case of Colombia, a partner, Telefónica, or Movistar, their cellular provider in Colombia, provided data plans for the students. And we also had a donor dashboard. So again, the donor, in this case, the Spanish government, but also the World Bank and the government of Colombia, could see exactly how these resources that were originally put in for a number of cohorts of students were eventually distributed to individual students and when they were exchanged in the marketplace. So every transaction was verified on the blockchain and was time-stamped. Now, again, the results of this intervention were increases in student motivation and transparency and trackability of funds. So we had very high levels of engagement for an online learning program, with 85% of the total content completed. We had development of 21st century skills, with almost 86% of the total number of students scoring 10 out of 10 points on the engagement metric, which was related to reading a graphic novel on the platform. And then finally, there were over 2,000 badges that recognized development of student skills. Again, just to reiterate, on the blockchain, we had the rules design that defined exactly when students would receive tokens and rewards. The donors had complete transparency in real time of when these resources were transferred to students. And we were able to kind of capture feedback from donors to get feedback on whether indeed this is a scalable project. We did deal with a great number of legal and regulatory issues. This was a closed system, so tokens could not be transferred out of the system. And we used a sandbox approach to try to anticipate some of the risks and mitigate those risks during design. And again, just to reiterate, the The use case for this was what we call conditional cash transfer, which in the case of Colombia, there was a program called Youth in Action that was incentivizing students that were out of school to enroll in skill building programs, stay in those programs, graduate, and develop skills. So this was a way to have a much more cost-effective and transparent way to target and support those students through the transfer not of cash directly, but through tokens that represented value. Now we're excited about this technology. The next area that we're beginning to look at that I think is relevant to where we are now in this virtual conference in the metaverse is the ownership of digital content, whether it's an avatar or whether it's an in-game tool, or whether in this case it is digital content. And we're looking at the possibility of how we might be able to use this experience with the blockchain to empower local content creators to own their content. And then to develop the basis, building off this last experiment on transparent value, exchange of value across education systems, identifying kind of content is one aspect of value in an education system. Now we started a project with 4 countries on the theme of migration. We looked at Afghan refugees moving out of Afghanistan. We looked at the refugee and migration challenge in Colombia, both internal displacement and the Venezuelan crisis, as well as the migration north of youth in Honduras. We also worked with the school right here in Washington, D.C. that caters to adult migrants. This is an example of how the digital content is being developed. This is the image of both a character and a background layer. And this is what I want to talk about a little bit in terms of thinking of digital content in layers that could be owned by various content providers. This is the example of Gladys that was developed in Colombia. And this is the concept that we're borrowing from a field of generative art that deals with the composition of different layers in a photo. In this case, all these layers are images, but you could imagine having images, also having text, having audio, you could have video. So again, thinking about digital content as a series of layers that could be composed in different ways and could be combined to form unique digital assets. And again, some of the layers that we're experimenting with is art. Again, you could have background layers, you could have technology characters, some of the narrative in terms of text, music. So again, the types of layers you determine are most appropriate for your digital content are varied. And you can imagine, for instance, having digital content that might have an art layer that is set in Bogota in Colombia and want to use that exact same digital content, but maybe do the background in Cali or Medellin, a different city in Colombia. You would be able to reuse all of the layers of that content and just change perhaps that background layer, recognizing all of the artists, storytellers, educational designers that have supported all the top layers, and just rewarding again and bringing a new artist into this network to create a background layer for Cali, for instance, for a different city. This is an example of exactly kind of what we did and how the composition of these layers have come together in the pilot. So as you can see, we have a couple of images. We have some dialogue. We have a voice layer that could be audio. And then we have some text that introduces the actual learning objectives. So again, research the internet, blogs, articles, magazines related to the global grand challenges and related to a problem affecting your community. When doing research, remember to use reliable sources of information. So this is the actual learning activity that the students would do. But again, this one panel would be one of, say, 24 that would tell a story and would also bring the students through an educational arc from understanding the global grand challenge, how it affects their community, what the problem is, what might be a solution, and then how to communicate their solution to this specific challenge. In this case, it's migration. So these are some of the experiments that we've been running that we think are portend maybe some aspects of the future of education that are provide opportunities for, in the cases that I demonstrated, more efficiency in terms of transfer of resources, more transparency in those resources, opportunities to provide real incentives to students, as well as opportunities to provide real ownership to content creators, and ultimately looking at ways in which this could form an exchange of value across an education system that could actually take place in some form of a metaverse. After this project, we did a series of seminars over a year that looked at various aspects of the use of blockchain in education, from just kind of understanding what it is, to looking at ecosystems and crypto networks, to looking at learner-centered credentials, which is one of the most prevalent use cases for the blockchain to ensure that the value given to a credential is actually valid and it's a real credential, and to try to address fraud in credentials, to how these skills and micro-credentials and badges could form a sort of skills economy, to looking at the very important aspects of assessment and measurement to ensure that indeed these skills do have value, to looking at kind of the economics of the exchange of value across different actors, whether it's students, teachers, mentors. So all of this is on our website. You can kind of jump into the recordings, and we encourage you also to join in our next iteration of this community. So let me stop there and thank you all very much for your time. I hope you found this interesting. Again, we're very much looking forward to continued collaboration with all of you, and especially with our good partners at Keras. And we hope to see you again, hopefully in person and not just here in the metaverse. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a great honor for me to be here in this conference. And at the very first, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Wang Shuaiguo from China, Tsinghua University. And today I will introduce our MOOC platform, XueTangX, to everyone here. The topic today I would like to share is tech-enhanced lifelong learning, nurturing future skills and talents. That's the theme of the conference, and also what I want to show to everyone about XueTangX. XueTangX is a MOOC platform initiated by Tsinghua University 9 years ago. It is an online education platform providing MOOCs from all the world. In the last month, we got 10 million learners all over the world. It is a new record for us, and also reaches the second largest MOOC platform all over the world. XueTangX established 9 years ago, and across these 9 years, a lot of learners can learn MOOCs, use smartphones, use tablets, and use different kinds of devices. It can get the most valuable learning content in a very free price. At the second time, a lot of universities are gathering on this platform. First of our stage university in China, including Tsinghua University, Peking University, Fudan University, Shanghai Jiaotong University, providing courses to XueTangX. Yeah, the second stage, a lot of overseas, out of China university providing courses, such as Stanford University, Cornell University, UK Open University, Berkeley University of California, etc. And all these top-class universities from all the world providing courses on the platform, and also these contents are free for the students in different areas. In China, we are providing a lot of tools for people to get the content. For example, we develop a lot of mini program. They can get it in WeChat and learn courses. And we developed a smart TV version application for a lot of smart TV in different homes, so they can learn courses, use their TV at home. So in this kind of tools are very popular in different kind of area. We are offering more than 5,003 different kind of courses from top universities and spread to different families, different courses, and different learners. And these learners are all from 193 countries and regions. And Xuetanx provides now 3 main languages, the interface: Chinese, English, and Spanish. And more languages are coming in the future. And I'm hoping in the year after the next year, we're providing the Korean language of Xuetanx and be more friendly and convenient for Korean learners. And not only a platform to gathering a lot of courses, Xuetanx also providing a very popular tool for teachers we call Ring Classroom. This is a very powerful tool for teachers, not only in higher education, but also in the K-12 education. It's launched in 2016, and this tool combines 2 software together. One is PowerPoint, another is WeChat. WeChat is a messaging application very popular in Chinese world. And these tools we combine together to make teaching and learning more easily. So you can see in this slide, the Ring Classroom just enabled in this PowerPoint software and WeChat software. So every teachers, if someone can use PowerPoint and someone can use WeChat, and they can learn WeChat Ring Classroom very quickly and get familiar with this tool in less than 10 minutes. Right now, Ring Classroom has monthly users in China of more than 28 million users right now. So it's almost including all university students and teachers in China. This is a very typical thing you can see in Chinese classroom. They are using Ring Classroom. Beginning with a QR code, the students take off to their cell phone and scan this QR code and entering this Ring Classroom. So teachers and learners can interact with each other very easily. Use cell phones, students can send bullet subtitle throughout the screen and get feedback from students very easily for teachers. Can send exercises within the slides and can get a video post, a red bonus, and clear button in all this in PowerPoint right now. So it gets a lot of frequent interaction between teachers and students. And this is something we shoot in the real classroom. Ring Classroom are not only used in the classroom, we also can use it pre-class and after class. So Ring Classroom makes blended learning much easier for students and teachers. For example, before class, teachers can use PowerPoint and with Ring Classroom to produce a pre-class slides and can easily send to everyone's cell phone. When they get this message in their WeChat, the student click the message and can read the slides right now. The MOOC video, teacher's voice memo easily can be enabled in this slides. A student can get the learning material very easily. And after class, teachers and students can get a lot of reports from pre-class and in-class interaction. And this feedback make teachers and learners know each other very easy. And when we do Ring Classroom in every class, so we make every classroom in China digital. We know when something is digital, we can easily clone, copy, paste, and share. So when we clone a digital classroom, we call this technology clone classroom. A clone classroom is a virtual classroom, which is synchronize every learning activities with another real private online classroom. When one classroom uses Ring Classroom, we digitalize every learning material, learning activity in this online private classroom and makes a virtual classroom very easily on this virtual world. The closed classroom has every detail and real-time learning material and activity, but does not describe the order of learning in the original classroom. So we can have a lot of clone classroom from this original classroom. In this way, we can share all this new clone class to people who need this class. For example, in COVID-19 crisis, Tsinghua University used clone class technology to share their classroom to a lot of students in the University of Hubei province, which is high damaged by the COVID. And also we launched a Weiyang program in Tsinghua University to make students can learn every class very easily in clone class and get the learning material very easily and do not need to get the credit. And this is a professor in Tsinghua University who is 90 years old, used Ring Classroom to share their class to students for different universities. So you can see learning in China are changed very hard well. Students can learn courses from on-site, which can be used, enhanced by the technology we call Ring Classroom. They can also learn some courses online in XueTangX, which is a books platform in China. So you can see students are enhanced by different kinds of learning technologies, and students can get teachers from their own university and also from the university all over the world. On the other hand, we get a lot of data from online courses and on-site courses. So we can use this data for education management. These are since in China for the COVID-19 days, a lot of students and teachers are not at universities. They may be at home and maybe far away from each other, but they can, the management in the universities are not clear. So they can get all the detailed data and can be analyzed by the artificial intelligence system. And also this technology gets the winner, gets the awards of the 2 years ago's THE Technology Innovation of the Year. So let's get the inclusion. Well, we know lifelong learning is not easy. A lot of learners cannot learn a course very easy. They may drop for every chapter, every learning materials, but we can use different kind of technology to enhance different kinds of classrooms, especially for the digital transformation. And we know that digitalization makes learning and teaching easier to share and analyze, and which will benefit for all stakeholders, from students, educators, to universities. So we can see the future, not only the metaverse, not only the MOOCs platform, but also we can see a lot of digital new universities are generating. Students can learn courses from one university in the morning, another university in the afternoon, and the third university maybe in the evening. They can learn courses from different time zones, different students, from different educators from the best university all over the world. And we can see this right now, not the future. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hajime Shiro, working for NIER, Japan. NIER is a research institute affiliated with the Ministry of Education, which is called MEXT. I gave you a talk in Korea 5 years ago, and I looked back on the slides to minimize the effort for my presentation by reusing it. Since honestly, I was asked to prepare today's talk in just a few days ago. So I looked up on the slide, but surprisingly and unfortunately for me, I couldn't use any slide because the situation has changed drastically from that year. This is what I meant. In year 2017, education has to change, which starts a new national curriculum guideline. But in this year, we have to think about EdTech, digital textbook, COVID-19, big data, and CBT with one PC per child. I explained this year by year. First, in year 2017, new national curriculum guideline was announced. The goal of which was nurturing competencies integrated with content, and the method of which was called active learning. And some teachers were excited and some were anxious, but they focused on how to implement this new type of learning. Programming education was also included, but is only required nurturing computational thinking, not programming nor computing. Every teacher should try it in every school, in every subject, something like this. For example, in music, utilizing ICT for creation of music through trial and error, such as transforming length and height of sounds. This is a very basic use of ICT, but I think it's very important ways to learn about the ICT. Then in 2018, various movements initiated. For example, Cabinet Office proposed new visions of our future. They classified the societies from society 1.0, 2.0, and go to this new society from hunting and gathering, agricultural, industrial, information. And this is a new society, something like integration of the cyberspace and the physical space for well-being of all members, society members. Along with this line, MEXT proposed that teachers supported by advanced technology create future education. And METI, Ministry of the Economy, Trade and Industry, initiates the classroom of the future. And they brought the personalized adaptive learning, something like a concept. And in 2019, the big project started. That is providing one PC per student by affording just $300 US per student. So, okay. Oh, this is called Giga School Initiative, which was planned at the time in 5 years by 2023. And in our vision or hope, Giga School Initiative might fit the world where the ICT serves as some kind of the chopsticks. When we eat foods, we use chopsticks as your country. And in the beginning of our lives, as some children, we need some practice to use chopsticks, but we naturally become fluent in using chopsticks as eating food every day. So like that, in the classrooms, some practice like typing might be needed at the beginning, but the students become fluent in using ICT by learning the subject matter or engaging in active learning. Thus, the main task for the teachers is not preparation of ICT, but that of learning target as a nice meal that inevitably requires the use of ICT. And in 2020, COVID-19 attacked, and GIGA was accelerated. The plan was completed by 2021, just 3 years. The students did bring their tablet back to home and experience the online education during the school closure. School closure was made from February to May 2020. But when they came back to school, they should enforce social distancing like this. But the teachers did not give up collaborative learning, so they used PC and Zoom, something like a web platform devices like this that let their students engage in this type of collaborative learning via internet or devices in a safe manner. So such situation produces a huge amount of data and thus required a new platform to collect, visualize, and process the data. This is one of such visions made by Digital Agency, which was established just around a year ago. The diagonal line represents one's lives and surrounded by various opportunities to use and produce data. Such various kinds of data require standardization of it. This next launched expert panel on that from this year around, and I am a committee member of there. And in 2021, assessment changed in a rapid pace from project paper-based testing to computer-based testing. That is, I mean, CBT. So every year, MEXT and NIRE conducted national investigation of students' academic ability and learning situation about grade 6 and grade 9 of 1 million of each. The subjects are math and language, with science and foreign language once every 2 years. But those have been done by PBT. And from 2024, they plan to use CBT and later with IRT, that is item response theory. So MECBIT, MEXT plus CBT, will serve as a platform that very big scale assessment. Now we are turning to preparing the next guideline based on the national report issued later last year, which focused on the use of not only collaborative learning, but also personalized learning with the help of ICT, for example, AI Drill. But the problem is towards what direction we shall go. For example, the introduction of AI Drill too much makes some students go fast and others go slow, and divide them and shrinks the education into very personalized practice. So on your here, okay. So for example, for another example about the GIGA school initiative, the government and Board of Education wants to implement it, but some teachers will still worry. How should we use them? However, the important question is how can we change our own questions of this kind into something like in bold red font? I mean that how do students learn and how can we support them? If we try to achieve this new quality education, we need these technology. Why don't we have them right now? So these questions are very important for me. So there are slides taken from the NIRE Symposium, which invited the learning scientist Jeremy Rothschild as a guest. he caricatured the US situation, something like junk food. That's something like technology, use of technology in math and science is more like eating junk food. So the research needs to support this kind of healthy meal. So he schematized the situation like this. When the practitioner keenly collaborate with researchers and developers to use learning theory and technology to improve student learning, something like this axis, they realize the effectiveness. I mean, the quality of education, the education of high quality. But on the other hand, it lacks the skill. So if we pursue the skill, such as Giga School Initiative did, then we lack effectiveness. So the remaining question is, how do we get here, where the effectiveness and the skill is both realized? So he said to policymakers, how can you guide educators, developers, and researchers to both effectiveness and skill? To the developers, do you have a good partnership with researchers to translate the best approaches to learning in the heart of your product? And to the educators, of course, collecting exciting stories from individual teachers and stories is very important but easy. But how will you bring about deep change that is required in order to really improve things for your students with technology? So it's something like making student learn better at the scale with technology is a journey that educators, developers, and researchers must commit to take together. So to these questions Jeremy posed, I, as a learning scientist, would like to answer something like this. The first point is the learning science matters. That is, we need to proceed toward building the community of doing science learning or doing science of learning to integrate technology, curriculum, and professional and society development toward everyday lesson study improved by the technology. Thank you so much.